that you don't need a gun because you can always call the police.
I still okay. I hear you, but there's a lot to get to today. Let's tease that and roll it into Firearms Friday because it's.
Yeah. Oh, wrong button. That's okay though. So there's a bit of a spoiler. I see a lot of our favorites, a lot of our regulars in here, but I see Brandon R has joined us.
Can we make the obvious joke?
What's that?
Let's go, Brandon. we mean it with love, though.
We do. But he says, "Good morning. Found your channel yesterday. Really excited to go back through the videos. I'm going to drop you a link right here in the chat, my man, and try that one out. This highly recommend. We haven't done as much of this is kind of the silly shit that we do sometimes. We haven't done nearly as much of it as we would like to, just because, my time. But,
yeah, 4 kids and full-time jobs.
Yeah.
But I repeat myself.
Yeah.
So,
And just to be clear, being a single parent is a full-time job. Having a single kid as a married parent is a full-time job. The full-timedness of the job does increase geometrically with the number of children. And once you get to 3, the little bastards outnumber you. Danny says one of your favorite tranny friends is in the house. Not sure how much Alex is going to appreciate that joke. I can't. I wish I could see Alex's face when he hears that joke made, because it was priceless.
Hey, so before we get going, Sean Stryker...
Exponentially. Habeas corpus quoting the shitter in chief.
So, Sean Stryker dropped Jeremiah 23:17 in the chat, which is, "They keep saying to those who despise me, the Lord says you will have peace, and to follow all the stubbornness of their hearts, they say no harm will come to you." I feel like I missed something in the chat. I thought that was going to be...
That might have, oh, sorry.
We're good.
You gonna make it?
Yeah, we're going to make it.
Roger that.
So, the government sucks.
And so do Twitch bots. Banned. Okay.
So yeah, the government sucks, and we're going to talk about just a couple of cases where the government absolutely and utterly failed to secure both, well, security and justice.
Yep. And let's just start with little Ron Swanson.
My idea of a perfect government is one guy who sits in a small room at a desk, and the only thing he's allowed to decide is who to nuke. The man is chosen based on some kind of IQ test, and maybe also a physical tournament, like a decathlon. And women are brought to him, maybe, when he desires them.
Yeah, I have to agree. One guy in a room just decides who to nuke.
Yeah. And at this point, the caricature, the left's attempt to paint right-wingism in the most evil light that it possibly can looks more and more reasonable every day. Like, at this point, just given how bad government is messing everything up, just messing up. I don't even need to say everything, just how bad government is messing up.
And it really is as simple as Ron Swanson is supposed to be a caricature of the crazy right-wing nut job, right? But it's a caricature of the crazy right-wing nut job written by a leftist who believes that crazy right-winger is evil. So what this person has done is they've said, what is the most evil thing I can imagine? And the most evil thing that a leftist can imagine is a person who wants to be left alone by the government, wants to keep the money that he earns without having it stolen at gunpoint through taxes, prefers that we not murder children for the sake of convenience, feels like the Constitution was a good idea, doesn't mind working hard to earn a buck, and likes a scotch with his steak. That's the most evil thing a leftist can imagine. The most evil thing a leftist can imagine is a person who doesn't want to mutilate children for political points.
That's right. Is a Chris. That's the most evil thing they can imagine.
A person who thinks that elections should be secure. That's the most evil thing a leftist can imagine. And that's how a leftist, in a vain attempt to create the Ron Swanson character to be a caricature of the evil right, created what is actually a very reasonable American man.
Yep. Okay, before we move on to the thing, and I say this in all sincerity, trigger warning, it's about to get dark. So
we want to start here, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start here. Let's start with the local story.
Okay, you want to read it?
Sure. Georgia Supreme Court overturns Ross Harris's murder conviction in son Cooper's hot car death. From Cobb County, Georgia. The Georgia Supreme Court has overturned the Ross Harris's murder and hot car death of his son Cooper. The court released its opinion Wednesday morning. The court upheld Harris's conviction for sexual crimes committed against a teen. The Supreme Court has reversed Justin Ross Harris's convictions for murder and other crimes related to the death of his toddler son Cooper in a hot car because the jury heard and saw an extensive amount of improperly admitted evidence. The Cobb County District Attorney's Office says it plans to file a motion for reconsideration in the Harris case. Okay, look, I'm going to be really, really, really crystal clear about this. All right?
Good morning, Mom.
Yes, we are the toxic male leftist. Wait. Anyhow, I'm going to be like super crystal clear on this. I personally think that Ross Harris is guilty with a capital G and 14 more U's. Like, guilty.
Just based on his internet search history immediately before the murder of his son, on the circumstances required to create an infant hot car death, I am more certain of Ross Harris's guilt than I am that Trump actually stooped Stormy Daniels, despite her recanting of the claim.
That's okay. So anyhow, utterly convinced of his guilt, right? Absolute slam dunk, throwaway, hot car death. Like, there's other stuff that came out. Like, he actually went back out to his car around lunchtime and apparently didn't notice his kid was still in the car. Which,
right?
Okay, sure, whatever, pal. That's a story, and you're sticking to it.
And just real quick, the only way I can see that that's even feasible is if, okay, let's say he gets to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and goes to take his lunch around noon. So you came out to the hot car where the suffering child was. The only way you didn't realize the child was in the car is if the child was already so far either into heat stroke or already dead that it wasn't screaming about the I've been left alone, I've been abandoned, and oh my God, it's hot.
Yes.
And also I've shit in my pants and my butt hurts because oh my God, it's hot.
Yes, Brandon, this was the guy that Googled hot car deaths right before his child died in a hot car.
And that was part of the evidence introduced in the court.
As I was saying, I'm convinced of his guilt because he actually went back out, and it's on video surveillance that he went back out there and fussed around with stuff in his car, like threw a package into the car, like it's all bizarre and sick and evil and twisted and just all the terrible, like, go home and cry things, okay? And somehow, the Cobb County District Attorney took a case that should have been an absolute slam dunk, life in prison, if you're lucky you don't get the death penalty case, and screwed it up by, according to the Georgia Supreme Court, introducing a whole bunch of evidence. And the evidence that they improperly introduced to the jury was all this bizarre stuff about how he fantasized about having all these affairs, and he had all these, like, online and sexting relationships with adults and teens, okay? Don't get me wrong, this dude's a creep, all right? He really is. And yet, somehow, the district attorney screwed it up bad enough, okay? Like, the Supreme Court said that the jury heard an extensive amount of improperly admitted evidence. But this is the government we're going to trust with all the different things and yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, so anyhow, but as if that's not bad enough, as if the government failing to do justice to one child isn't bad enough. But wait, there's more.
There's more. Here we go. Officer husband of slain Uvalde teacher was detained, had gun taken away after trying to save wife. Texas DPS director said, huh?
Do we even need to read this? This is one of those times where, like, the headline's it. I mean, the article's just filler, but please go ahead. Like, Jesus.
So, and I'll read it. I'll read it kind of quickly. So, shocking testimony from Dallas, Texas DPS director on Tuesday has revealed even more insight into the abject failure of response to the Uvalde shooting that occurred on May 24th. Texas Department of Public Safety Director Colonel Stephen McGraw revealed that the husband of slain elementary teacher Eva Mireles tried to save her but was barred from doing so. Ruben Ruiz is a police officer for the school district and was on the scene after the gunman entered the school and opened fire. McGraw and Mireles called Ruiz and told him that she had been shot and was dying. And what happened to him is he tried to move forward into the hallway, McGraw said, and he was detained and they took his gun away from him and escorted him off the scene. McGraw didn't say who specifically detained Ruiz. Okay, first thing I want to address real quick is within this one is the cat that actually took out the shooter in this case was not one of the officers on scene. He was an off-duty police officer who had to borrow a gun from his barber and get in there and get the job done. I'm not getting confused. This is the same case, right?
This is the same case, but do we even know that that's the truth? Because it turns out that Uvalde may have lied to us about this entire thing from top to bottom, but we'll get there.
I have reasonable confidence that at least that piece is true, because it seemed like there was active work to try and suppress that. Not only the police didn't just fail; they failed so entirely that an off-duty police officer from a different department had to come in and save their asses. So, and I bring that point up because these officers prevented this off-duty officer from attempting to do the same thing as what was done by the officer that actually solved the problem, right? So, all that to say that not only did these guys fail, but they actively went out of their way to exacerbate the problem by removing solutions.
Like pissed off parents.
Exactly.
Like pissed off husbands.
You want to hit that real quick?
Okay, I've said from the beginning that at a certain point, as children are dying, like, you could just let the parents storm the school unarmed, and the shooter would take out some of the parents, no doubt. But the mob of pissed off parents would take out the there would be fewer, not just dead children, but I think fewer dead people altogether if you had just let the parents storm the school with whatever weapons they could find in that few minutes, because when you're talking about your children, all of the stuff goes out the window, okay? You want to turn a person, like that whole mama bear thing is real. You want to see the sweetest woman you know turn into a psychopath and start lighting things on fire? Threaten the life of one of her children, and it will be over. But in this case, and y'all, we're gonna get to the locked door thing here in a bit, but God, it just keeps getting darker, okay? But in this case in particular, and we talked about whether or not we wanted to go this far, and I made the point that I don't think that we can back off of it. And then Steve said earlier in the thread that you would have to shoot me. This is inexcusable. I think it's why they detained their fellow officer and put him into custody, because they realized he was going to do the math and say, okay, if you're going to make me fight my way through you to have what are likely to be the last words I'm ever going to have with my wife, I will fight my way through you to have whatever last words with my wife. So we got Georgia, that is nominally a conservative state, that and your dad said it was the judge's fault, not the district attorney's fault, but we've got Georgia, a nominally conservative state that can't bring justice to a murdered child. And then you got Texas, also a conservative state that can't stop the active murder from children. The kind of place that is supposed to be, oh, back the blue, we back the blue, can't even allow one of their own to try and save his wife. So yeah, like at some point, and of course, nobody's saying go out and murder cops. That is absolutely 100% not what any of us are saying or think or anything like that. But at the same time, please, I am begging you from the deepest parts of me that can express the most Christianity that I can. Please do not ever make me choose between you and saving somebody I care about. Even with Chris and I being friends, we were talking about this before the show. Like, if I knew he was like 100 feet away, bleeding out, and you're going to try and stop me from saving his life, you better be real sure that's what you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, my wife is stranded in a school, shot, bleeding, has called me, told me this is true. You have to kill me. That's your option. I will make you kill me before I allow you to prevent me from carrying her to safety. It's that simple. And I don't like to bring this up, but it's relevant. I mean, Cameron and I were at one of the first famous school shootings in America. 1 month to the day after the Columbine shooting was the Heritage High School shooting. When that happened, I was sitting on the trunk of my car in the parking lot having breakfast. I had drinking coffee, smoking a cigarette, eating some donuts, and every cop in the world came into the parking lot, and for a second I thought I'd just picked up the last blueberry cake, but it turned out there was a bad dude trying to make some noise. Trying to make a lot of noise, and he hurt a bunch of people. And the response, the answer, is the teachers and the administration evacuated the building and corralled all of the students into a fenced field. They ran everybody out of the building and corralled them on the fenced baseball field right outside of the school. And the instant I saw that, I went over. I was a senior in high school. My baby sister was a freshman in high school at the time. We were at the same high school. The 1 year we were both there. And I went over and I called out to her and said, "Come on, we're getting out of here." And one of the teachers tried to stop me. And I was getting them mixed up. I forget if it was Coach Gray or Coach Blue.
It doesn't
I think
matter.
it was Gray. But I threatened to kill him. I told him right then and there, you're taking all of the targets of opportunity and putting them into an enclosed, target-rich environment with an active shooter. Like this is before I was a professional warfighter, and I understood this is probably the least tactically sound thing you could possibly do in this situation. We're leaving. And I used a lot of very colorful language and threatened him.
Habeas corpus.
Yep. So they put all the fish into a different barrel. No, more importantly, they put all the fish into a much smaller barrel. It might have been one thing if it was just a different, very large barrel. And I got my sister and her shithead boyfriend at the time, and I took them home. I took them back to mom and dad's house, and I turned around and went straight back to the school and just started taxiing people away from the school and taking them home or wherever I wanted to drop them off.
So Alex is
Alex asked the question, let me ask you this, when you were active, would you have disobeyed an order to save lives or just done it and dealt with the consequences? That's a very difficult question to answer, Alex. I have done both, and the situations made it very... Those situations are incredibly complex.
Did you ever have one that was as fucking obvious as this?
No. And that's what makes them so complex. I've been in situations where I had orders that I disagreed with, and I had to give a lot of thought to whether or not I could understand how the conclusion could be come to. And I've had those situations arise where, on the one hand, I came to the conclusion that the order was lawful and not unreasonable, even if I disagreed with it, and I went ahead and followed through. I've had other situations where the order was... I came to the conclusion that the order was unlawful. I blew through it. And after the fact, when I went to face the consequences, I made my case, and I got to keep doing my job, and the officer that gave the orders did not. And then I had a couple where there were orders, and I told the guy that gave the orders, no, these are bullshit. You can't do it this way, and the result will be catastrophically bad. And so I was removed from the mission in order to avoid the conflict there. And the result, it was kind of like telling people not to vote for Joe Biden. I just got to sit back and watch the gas prices soar. And except this time, instead of looking at the high gas price and saying, okay, well, this sucks for me, but I told you so, and here comes a red wave, I got to sit back and say, okay, well, there's the table full of Pop-Tarts, but that colonel just got 14 soldiers fucking exploded because he wouldn't listen. So it is incredibly, it can be incredibly complex, but this is not one of those.
Yeah, I promise.
Almost 24 police officers stood in a hallway and listened to children be murdered for an hour and a half.
Yeah, and the hallway, and I promise we're gonna people are the door. Look, all right. Okay. Look, so for 77 minutes, this thing happened roughly, and apparently, according to this same colonel, there were enough cops on scene within 3 minutes to mount a counter assault. I could even see an additional, 3, 4, 5 minutes of that 77-minute period where they're like, okay, we're about to go after an active shooter. Everybody got their shit locked down tight. Okay, fine, let's go. But at a certain point, you say, okay, we just don't have incomplete intel, but babies are being murdered in front of us, and we have to stop that, okay? And
right.
One of the lies, and I say the word lie because I think it's pretty clear at this point that Uvalde has lied and lied and lied and lied because of their just miserable levels of failure. But one of the lies, remember the locked door? The kid was behind a locked door, and it was one of those classrooms. It's actually 2 classrooms that's got a connecting door, and the door was locked and they couldn't get in, and there's all the discussion about, oh man, why did they have to wait for keys, and why didn't you just shoot the shooter through the door?
Right. One of the narratives is that they stood there for 45 minutes
and just
tried
like, key after key. Oh, please, God, let this be the key.
You're telling me that you tried a key without discovering that the door was unlocked? And Scrimshaw says, I read that the door may not have been locked. So what we have now is...
well, to be clear,
the hearings.
The locked door that they stood outside of, where children were shot 50 feet away, literally, was not locked. And not only was it not locked, you can't lock that door from the inside, which means the shooter never could have barred himself inside the classroom.
Correct. And I want to be crystal on this. We have the testimony from the public safety director, and that's this Colonel Stephen,
yep.
Colonel Stephen McGraw, the public safety director from there. His testimony in the hearings around this is that it's not that we suspect that the door wasn't locked or that there's evidence that the door may have not been locked. It's that the door doesn't lock.
From the inside, yeah, that's what I said.
You cannot lock the door from the inside. That it is not possible for the door to have been locked unless someone with a key came and locked it from the outside. Which we know didn't happen because they didn't know which key to use.
I mean, so yeah, this is the government.
Sean, you're getting ahead of me.
Look, we're going to tease that up for tomorrow for Firearms Friday, okay? Let us get there. I promise we're trying to. But look, this is the government right here. This is the government. These are, and again, referencing Georgia and Texas, supposed to be conservative, reasonably well-governed places. This is the government that you're relying on to make sure that your kids are safe. I got to tell you, man, Alex said up earlier in the thread that they would kill you. They're not going to allow you to... Yes, they tried dozens of keys. I know, Alex. I know. But Alex said earlier in the thread, they are not going to allow you to disrespect their authority. They will kill you. I think things like this have a tendency to dramatically shift the Overton window. Because let me tell you, back the blue, like, why? If this is how they handle crisis, what are they good for? And I don't say that lightly. My dad, bless him, before he passed, was a cop, and I, up until very recently, had a bit of a hero worship thing with cops, and I'm completely rethinking that entire position because, like, what good are you? Oh, you're going to go write traffic tickets and generate revenue for the city. You're real good at that. And if I fight you generating that revenue for the city, you're going to arrest me and tase me and possibly even shoot me, depending on the nature of the fight. You're good for that, okay? And then whatever district attorney you report to and whatever judge that district attorney reports to is going to find a way to organize the facts in such a way where I'm the bad guy because I was pissed that you pulled me over for doing 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, and that went terrible. But no, dead kids? Nah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And so what is the federal government's solution? What is everybody's solution? We're going to pass another law. We're going to make it super extra illegal to do illegal shit with guns. That'll solve the problem.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about this a bit more tomorrow. The rhinos, and nobody's surprised at most of the names on the list. You know, obviously you got your Romney, your Susan Collins, those shit-heeled Democrats in red suits. But I want you to understand this. Some of us raise our hand and swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And then some of us go and close with the enemy to destroy him in close combat. And if I'm being honest, that's more fun than a man should be allowed to have, because as Hemingway said, once a man has hunted armed men and found that he has a taste for it, very little else will ever satisfy him. But some of them that raise their hands choose to loiter around in the continental United States and collect revenue for a corrupt government at the point of a gun. And of the police officers that you meet, the vast majority, through a tenured career, will do nothing of significant value. They will not bust an important criminal. They will not bring down a drug ring. They will not catch a murderer who gets prosecuted and convicted, and stays convicted, apparently. They will loiter on street corners and rob law-abiding citizens at gunpoint. Because make no mistake, that is what the writing of a revenue-generating ticket is. If a thing is illegal but for a price, it's not a crime, it's a privilege. And if you can't afford to pay the ticket on an 82-mile over speeding ticket, it's because that's not for you. That's for rich people. Right? If it's a fine, it's not a crime. It's you're having a liberty, a privilege, a freedom curtailed or revoked. And the vast majority of police officers will never do anything more than collect revenue for a corrupt government by shaking citizens down on street corners with a gun to steal their money. Because it's not enough, apparently, that half of everything that anyone earns is taken in taxes. And at that moment, when you come to properly understand in your own life, because you have found yourself in one of these crises, that when seconds matter, the police are minutes away, I want to remind you that these are the men who are minutes away. So the men who can't get there fast enough to do what you should do, what is your divine obligation, your mortal responsibility, to arm and defend yourself, to go about girded so that you are not the victim of circumstance and weak positioning. These men who purport to be the arm of the government to take that responsibility on themselves against your will arrive too late to begin with. And then they'll sit around and pull their puds and watch you be murdered. And I say that advisedly because the Supreme Court has been very clear in Castle Rock and several other cases that the police have no duty, no legal duty to interfere in the commission of a crime. They have no legal duty to protect you or save your life if you are being raped, murdered, robbed, burglarized, whatever. They have no duty to stop the crime in progress. Their only legal and professional obligation is after the crime has been committed to conduct the investigation, the arrest, and to bring the criminal to prosecution after they have committed the crime. Now, we've talked about pre-crime on this show and how the red flag laws and pre-crime, that's a dangerous step down a very slippery slope. Pre-crime, that should scare the hell out of you. But what I'm talking about with the lack of responsibility that the police have is the Supreme Court has said that if you are being raped at gunpoint and a police officer stands there and watches you suffer and even up unto die, and he does not do anything to interfere, then he is perfectly within the scope of his legal duty, and the only thing expected or required of him professionally or legally is that he then arrest the criminal. But he has no obligation to help you. Whenever you see those words, protect and serve, on the side of a police car, that is a fucking lie.
Yeah, absolutely. The only person who can take care of you is you. So please come back tomorrow as we again make the case to repeal all gun law, and we talk about just how basically the government and the 14 rhinos included are dancing on the graves of these children so that they can pass a really curious version of gun control that they think they're being tricky because they're going to kick it down to the states and make the states figure out the details. They think they're going to cause a constitutional crisis. Oh, this one's going to be fun.
And this thing, and I'm going to close on this, and we're going to discuss it a little more tomorrow. As we're going into this midterm, the Republican Party is in a stronger electoral position going into the next midterm than they have ever been in at least the last 85 to 100 years. Right? The Republican Party's prospects for this upcoming midterms are astronomically positive. And somehow, you can just never underestimate the ability of our elected officials to sabotage the position of the Constitution by signing on to some shit like red flag laws. You know, I look at Utah, and I just want to... What are you doing?
R.I.P. headphone users.
I just... Fire Romney. Maine. Fire Susan. Right? Fire the rhinos.
Yeah, well, yeah. Anyhow, we are longer than even our normal we're long, and we'll come back tomorrow and Firearms Friday.
Indeed. So y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.
Government is one guy who sits in a small room at a desk, and the only thing he's allowed to decide is who to nuke. The man is chosen based on some kind of IQ test and maybe also a physical tournament, like a decathlon. And women are brought to him, maybe, when he desires them.